Good morning. So today we're going to be talking about connectivity between your plasma cutter and your control system. And this is a test that you would run if you find that when you hit F5 or when you hit cycle start on your system, we just want to make sure that when we do that, it actually fires the plasma cutter. And if it's not firing, these are the steps. The first one that we do is, depending on the plasma cutter that we have, you're going to have different connection points. However, they are all going to run on the same principle. There's a small amount of electricity running outwards, and when that circuit is completed, when you close that circuit, it fires the plasma cutter. That's what you're doing with the hand torch when you pull that trigger. On the machine system, it works a little differently. So this is a Hypertherm 45 XP. Ports 3 and 4 are your firing pins for the Hypertherm 45, 65, 85, and 105. In the Everlast, it's going to be a different pin configuration, so on and so forth as you change plasma cutters. But what you're going to do is, to make sure that's not the plasma cutter fouling out on you, we want to make sure that if we close this contact 3 and 4, if we run a small jumper wire there, it actually fires the plasma cutter. If it fires the plasma cutter, it means the plasma cutter is working. If it doesn't fire the plasma cutter, it means your plasma cutter is having some issues with its internal wiring for that port. So run that test first to make sure it's not the plasma cutter. After that, we have a cable that interfaces with this and moves towards the moves towards our control box. We want to make sure that that one's actually completing contact. Now, if you have a multimeter, this would be a relatively simple job of just making contact with the two pins and then closing the relay in Mach 3. So you hit F5 and it'll simulate the closing of these two contacts. It'll close the contact, and if you do get a reading off the multimeter, it does mean that, well, the system is working on that end. It is closing contact. So you may just need to reseat this particular connection to make sure that these contacts are being solidly contacted. So that's a simple way to test that. However, if you're not getting a reading when you do manually fire and you hit F5 Mach 3, that contact is closed and it does nothing, your multimeter doesn't read anything, you're not seeing any voltage coming through, that's an issue. Let's go ahead and fix that. There's two locations where that can be an issue. One of them, and I'm going to go ahead and walk over to our actual control system, one of them is at the control box itself. So we're going to notice here there's the P port here. This is where our plasma cutter, sitting over there, the Hypertherm 45 XP, is running out to over here. We want to make sure, A, that this is seated properly, and B, there are two pins, the two far outside pins of the 4-pin set on the DB9 cable here that actually help signal the control box there, or the plasma cutter there. We check that. We want to make sure that there is actual contact coming through there, and that can be done by running a small wire across those two pins on the back end and then testing the voltage from this end here. If this wire here has accurate connectivity, if it's actually communicating and reading across the entire length of the wire, it does mean that the wire itself is fine and it's happening internally. If it's happening internally, you can give us a call and I can help you fix that issue. It actually is a relatively simple problem of tracing that cable back. It's just a single 2-wire cable that connects to 2 ports on our breakout board where that relay is triggered. So we'll walk through that. It's a fairly uncomplicated loop and we'll get you going. But those are the 3 different locations that we check initially when it comes to firing a plasma cutter and getting that running. There is one other place we can check, and that's in programming, and we'll go over that in another video.